Okay, today we are going to look at a couple of exciting openings, which I think which you can definitely try, and I think all of you should know about these openings because they actually demonstrate the classical approach, right, to chess, which is like attack. White should attack, and obviously all of us like to attack, right? Maybe a few of us, very few of us, would love to keep having a defensive game, but most of us like to attack. So now your attacking skills have to be get honed, and those especially get honed when you play these kind of gambit lines, because there was one grandmaster who said that okay, actually life becomes very simple after you play a gambit, because you already gambited a pawn, so you are one pawn down. So now you have to find out ways of attacking and winning, because if you do not do that and if you simply exchange, then you are going to lose, because one pawn down means most likely in the end game you are going to lose, right? So he says that then there is no option and you are forced to think of attack. So which is true in some sense, but yeah, it is important to know these openings and the ideas behind it. So we will briefly cover it, okay? And so Evans Gambit, right? Evans Gambit, I think if you watch the Agad Mathur videos on YouTube, I think he's all the time he makes these things about, oh, this guy played b4, but then he says, oh, he didn't actually play. I would have loved if he had played b4. And jokes about the Evans Gambit. Absolutely, yeah. So he also loves to see it. And incidentally, Kasparov did play against Anand in 1995 and defeated Anand also. So yeah, not that every day the top grandmasters play, but sometimes they do play. So let us look at it. So the idea is of Evans Gambit is very simple. I mean, it's predating that is the Italian game, right? Bishop c4, Greco analysis, all of it, what we had learned in level 2, right? How the e4, e5, and f3, and yeah, bishop c4, bishop c5, and then you know the entire world of attack with c3. That plan we have learned, right? C3, nf6, d4, and then how if black is greedy, then black can get into trouble. But if black is not greedy and if he gives back the pawn and it continues to develop, then he gets an okay game, right? That is what we saw in the Italian. Now what, there was this gentleman called Captain Evans. He was, I think, he was part of the British Army that time. I think he had also served in India, I believe. So he had come up with this idea saying that, oh, I want to play this. The standard plan is c3 and f6 here, but I want to get one tempo ahead. So I am sacrificing this pawn, which is b4, right? Now now what are you saying? Now if there is no option other than actually taking the pawn, okay, there is only thing that you may decide whether to take it with the knight or the bishop, and it turns out that taking with the bishop is better. With the knight it is not so good, right? So but if you decide not to take it, right, and if you simply drop back the bishop, then the pawn will further advance, attack the knight will have to move away, and then you will lose the central e5 pawn. White knight will come here and then attack on f7, right? So that is the idea. So because of which practically it is forced. Okay, there is a variation that we can get into, but it doesn't serve really too much of a purpose, knight taking it. Okay, and then directly trying to counter attack by opening also does not benefit black. Okay, so we are just checking what happens earlier, because then if you do this, then what happens is, yeah, e takes d5, knight takes b4, because knight is under attack and bishop is also under attack. So knight has to move and then also clear up the attack on the bishop. That is the point of this one. But then white castles, and now black also has to get ready for castling, right? His king is stuck. But knight takes e5, knight b takes d5, d4. So with this d4 basically push back the bishop and pin the knight. So it's a complicated position, but white is better. White is better here, and black will have to thing, and then white develops his knight, and after that black has to castle. But then white does get an attack because this knight is coming to e4. right? Knight is coming to e4 and putting pressure on the f6 pawn further. This bishop can anytime exchange this knight and then put extra pressure on this knight on f6. So that is the reason why. I mean, there are variations, there are games you can go through, but most of the time, like taking the pawn uh, is the most prudent way. And as I think Steinitz, world first official world champion, right, Wilhelm Steinitz, he used to say that the best way to refute a gambit is take the gambit pawn, right, accept the gambit, but then refute it means defend against it by giving back the pawn in some other position where you will be actually getting benefit. Okay, where you don't try to hold on to the pawn. If you try to hold on to the pawn, you may make some strange moves, and then you will have be more on material, but you will have a tremendous attack against you. So instead, don't be greedy. You have got an extra pawn, but be ready to give it up, but give it up in a favorable way, right? So that is what actually black's pawn, black strategy is: take the pawn, but then obviously there is a tempo loss, right? There is a tempo loss because c3 is coming. Now you have to decide where to go with the bishop. There are three, okay, there are four possible moves, but the main ones is either bishop goes to c5, back to where it was. Only thing is that now you see white will be able to play d4 now without black having played knight f6 in the Italian. In the Italian, bishop is on c5, knight is on f6 when the pawn comes up here, but white has achieved it by. So now if okay, the first I'll talk about the second variation, but if bishop goes to c5, then white gets a tempo ahead in this thing, right? That is what it is thing. But black can also decide to go back in a defensive position. Okay, it is an okay move. It is not, and not that he is losing, but white gets this strong center after this, right? If you exchange the pawn, then white has got a beautiful center. If you don't exchange the pawn and you simply go to the side to attack the bishop, then white can actually take this pawn, right? And so if you don't do anything, then anyway white is threatening to take this pawn, right? Or even to push the pawn and then take this pawn. So you have to do something. So that's the idea. I mean, I will not go too deep into it, but this is the idea of the Evans Gambit. Okay, so get an extra tempo, and if you follow some of those Italian games, you already know that one mistake from black and it can get a tremendous attack for white. So here it is further one move ahead, but at the cost of a pawn. So if black accurately defends, then he is definitely better because he has got an extra pawn. But you have to be knowing exactly what is the way to defend, right? That is the whole idea. So one of these variation is bishop to e7, but it is slightly rarer variation. The other option is after c3, bishop either goes to a5 or bishop goes to c5. Both of these are standard variations. So we'll see the next one where the bishop, yeah, c3 here, bishop goes to back to the original position c5, right, where it was, and then obviously white plays d4, right, and e takes d4, and at this point of time white, the preferred move for white is to actually castle and not take the pawn. Okay, because if you take the pawn, what happens is the bishop can again go back and give a check to the king, right? And then you cannot, at least in Italian, you could have brought the knight at c3, but now you cannot bring the knight at c3, right? Because it is not having any support. So you will have to play either the knight to d2 or bishop to d2, and it kind of interferes with white's plan of attack, right? Because white does not want to exchange here and then get into these kind of modes. So size of the board, okay, let me see, I can, yeah, is it better? Oops. Okay, fine. Cool. So so that is the thing. So white goes ahead and actually castles at this point of time, right? And then black is not so much interested in taking one more pawn. Actually, it is not a one more pawn because knight will develop anyway. if black takes the pawn, then white will say, anyway I wanted to bring my knight to c3, I am bringing it up, and you have 2 moves or 3 moves before you develop, because you have to play knight f6, you have to play d6 or d5, and then you have to castle. That is what is the black's thing before it can get to safety. So obviously black does not want to do this. Instead, black opens up with d6. Okay, opens up with d6. There is also, yeah, so this is weaker due to here itself bishop takes f7 is also idea is there. We had seen this idea in Scotch Gambit also, and here also it comes up, right? Because if you take the next king takes 8, then you can, right? King takes it, then queen can come to d5 check. King will go back, and white queen will capture the bishop, and not only the pawn gone, but the king has also lost its castling and it is stuck in the middle, so it will get under tremendous attack, right? That's why black does not take the pawn, but does sometimes black has the option of this is a cheeky move, so it doesn't want to take the pawn, but it moves ahead the pawn, knowing very well that white will capture it, but then whichever way he captures it, white is like slightly away from his pawn plan of attack, because if bishop comes here, then also the attack on f7 is gone, right? Then and if queen comes up here d3, actually the whole idea of queen is to by moving this c3 pawn, right, c2 to c3, white queen wants to get behind the bishop here and then attack on f7. That is the whole plan. So if queen comes to d3, then also like, okay, you have got the pawn back, but your plan of attack is gone, right? And that is what Steinitz meant by returning the pawn, gambited pawn, right? So this is also a continuation that you should be ready and you should know. And sometimes you can play it as black, and you definitely have to be ready to play from white side if you play this. But okay, but the popular one is d6, and then white takes this pawn at this point of time. Bishop has to go to b6 because you cannot come to b4 without any target, right? So this is the standard position of Evans Gambit. Yeah, so this is standard position. So then white continues to develop, right? Knight c3, because he has got a beautiful center now. He has to convert it. So I mean, you can't attack prematurely, but you have everything set up. Queen is ready to come to b3 if required, right? And it does come into certain situations. So what do you do? If you play knight f6, then black has to be ready to fight against pawn thrust e4 to e5. Okay, so this is the whole setup. Now, yeah, for example, if you play this one, right? Then if you play knight f6 is a natural move, then white goes ahead and starts the attack. And if black takes it, he doesn't even first take the pawn back, but instead, remember this bishop a3 move from the Keres variation of the Gioco Piano, right, Italian game, where bishop comes here and cuts across the black's half, prevents the black king from castling, and then white is going to attack further, right? So this is the idea. So that's why nf6 is kind of difficult to hold. I mean, you can still play it, but it becomes the attack comes up, right? So then instead, sometimes the black will play knight g to e7, because then you know the pawn thrust is not attacking the knight directly, right? So this is also a way to play. Or black plays bishop to g4, right, and opens up his queen side at least gets developed, and he is putting a thrust on this one. So again, d4 is under attack. See, it is indirectly the knight on f3 has got pinned, and hence d4 has become weak because the bishop and the knight are attacking it now. Two attacks, and the knight cannot really defend it, right? But so this is how the black can also develop. But white also has got his own plan. He can go ahead and pin the knight. So now at least the d4 pawn is safe now, and the other knight has got pinned. So like this it continues. Okay, so then yeah, so at this point of time, I think the standard theory suggests king to f8 actually to come out of this situation. But anyway, I think we are too far into the thing. 10th move, I think, unless we start really going deep into the opening analysis, then only. But you get you get the idea, right? What happens and this one. So how both the what do you call, Given the choice, white will continue to maintain the bishop here and attack on the f7, especially with queen coming to b3, rook coming to e1, right? But black also put some spanner in the works if he's smart, right? So this is so a lot of, I will probably send a couple of I think in the handout I have included 2-3 games which we can go through to get an idea. Plus I will suggest some very good couple of suggested videos where the Evans Gambit games have been analyzed, or you can search it, I think, right? There are exciting games from Evans Gambit, right? Okay, so this was the second variation, and where bishop was coming to c5. Now we will look at right, where what I meant by is here bishop came back to c5. Instead of that, bishop can go to a5 also. So that is another, that is the third variation of the Evans Gambit, where bishop to a5, right? This so it continues. So now there is it's a bit kind of tricky. Okay, you can play d4 here, which is stand, but you know that if black takes the pawn, right, you cannot take it immediately. Okay, so there is something that is there. So black also does not do this combination. Okay, so here if black takes it, then white has to, obviously white cannot take it, but white can castle here. Okay, castle here, and then preparing to take this. Now you taking this pawn will not help. Okay, so let me see whether they have explained it here. Where are we? Oops. Yeah, here 7 is d3 and d6. Okay, no, I don't think they have explained it, but I will find a game and tell you what happens if you are greedy and you take this pawn, right? What happens? So because see, the bishop has got an open diagonal to attack. Knight can come to g5. A lot of there are two beautiful attacking games which demonstrate what happens if black takes the pawn, right here. I don't have it ready here, but I will send the links. Okay. So because of which black normally plays prudently and opens up d6, so that he shores up his e5 pawn, also opens the diagonal for the bishop. Right, so this is how the struggle continues. Queen comes to b3, right, and queen comes to d7 to support the f7 pawn. So there is a lot of struggle. So I think what is, I wanted to show one more variation where what happens is, yeah, I think there are two, three more attacking games, but yeah, at this point of time, then white gets into, yeah, he opens up, right, and then castles. So castles with the rook ready to come to d1 for the open file, and the knight is anyway ready to jump. This bishop can also come to a3, right, like we saw earlier. So there are interesting things. So yeah, see, rook to d1, queen to e7. White has got several ideas. One is also, the idea is pushing this pawn and strangulating this bishop here, etc. Obviously, black also has got counter things. Black can play a6 or even a5. Typically a6, so that make way for the bishop and retain the bishop. So there are many ideas like this. But best is that in all of this thing, right? So go through a dozen or so games. I will suggest some, and maybe I will send also. Okay, and that way you will get an idea of what are the ways that it can attack. I mean, the variations, otherwise the variation tree is too large, and certainly it is not like a it is, the gambit is not refuted. At the same time, it is not that the gambit always wins. So both, it's a balanced position, but it is very interesting to see this. So maybe we will try and see a game. I think we'll try and see a game. Let me put a board editor, analysis board. Okay, let us take it, and I will go through the handout. This is actually one of the first recorded games in this variation in the Evans Gambit. So played by Evans itself, Captain Evans. So let us see how he played it. He played it against McDonnell. McDonnell, if you remember the history of chess, MacDonald was an English master in the 1830s, 20s, 30s, maybe early 40s also, late 30s and this. So, and there was a La Bourdonnais was the French master. So both of them were the top players at that time. So they played 100-game match in between. So in fact, that is the first recorded long match between two masters. Before that, there were only few short matches, but two world-class players playing each other over a long. So that is the first thing. They played it between something 1834, I believe, or for over a period of 2 years, I think they were playing. So, and England France was the rivalry anyway. So La Bourdonnais actually won the match. He was slightly better, but MacDonald was also a Scottish player, master, and very nice player. Both of them were very nice. So some of their games, maybe sometimes no, only one game. No, I mean there are many games between them, but I will see one game. I will first let us see actually. Let us see this game. I was just giving the historical context. So this Captain Evans was another English master who introduced this opening. So he was playing again. He was playing white against MacDonald. Okay, so MacDonald was obviously better player, but Evans was also a strong player, right? He introduced. So let us see NF3 NC6. Right, what BC4 BC5, BC4 BC5, B4, right? Bishop takes B4, C3, bishop C5, right? This is the variation, and white castled here. White castled here. Knight played to F6, standard developing move, and attacking E4, right? White plays D4. Now ask the question: which pawn will you take? Will you take E4 or will you take D4? And black takes the D4 pawn. ED4, CD4, bishop B6. Bishop has to drop back, right? We saw this is the standard position we saw. Or maybe D6 was there instead of knight F6. That was the standard position. But here, black has played knight F6 in the spirit of proper development. So let us see what happens. Bishop B6, E5, right? If E5. So this is the central majority starts moving up, right? E5. Now black also does not want to simply put his knight here and then get h3 and the knight will go to it completely offside, it will become. So black rightfully plays d5. This is the right move for black. Okay, so because it also wants to open up the position, attack, block this bishop or cause an exchange which will be okay for black. So e5 d5, right? And now but you have to calculate the variation. So in here e takes f6, b takes c4, d takes c4, and uh, rook e1 check, rook e1 check. Okay, before you take the g7 pawn, first get the rook onto the main line. So
how is this considered proper? It doesn't look good.
yeah, it doesn't look good for black. So because black has played knight f6, but again, see, remember this was the first game in which Evans actually played it. So right, so black is not aware of it, right? So after that, a lot of analysis happened, everything, right? But this was like somebody is playing a novelty against you. Obviously, in the game, you will not have so much time to think through everything, right? So you sometimes you'll play it or sometimes you'll make mistake, but then you will go back and analyze, oh, what was this new move and what are the other possibilities, etc. So right now, look at it from this perspective because it was the first master game in this opening, right? So rook e1. Now there is also this threat of pawn takes here and attacking the rook, right? So king goes to f8. King goes to f8. King goes to f8. Debatable, but yeah. But see here now what happens. Bishop comes to a3, right? And there is nothing for black to insert in between or block the bishop, right? The knight being on c6, the c pawn can also not move, so kind of terrible. So bishop a3, king g8, no other option, right? And now white continues with the attack. So knight drops back. It cannot go to e7. It cannot go to e5. right? It cannot go to d4 also. So the only move is really either going to b8, that is one option, or knight to a5, right? And then bishop to e7, right? So queen to d7, f takes g7, king takes g7, queen d2, queen d2. The queen is ready to come to g5 now, right? And about to finish, right? That is the, because that will be checkmate, right? If queen comes to g5, there is nothing, no way, there is no way to block it. So it is a terrible threat, right? It's a terrible threat. So queen d2. So queen comes to g4, obviously to block that. But then white gets this queen to c3 check. Queen to c3 check. And remember, there is a rook behind it, so king really has to go back to g8. He cannot afford to do anything, right? And he cannot push the pawn also. So king has
So then white can play bishop to f6.
bishop. There is a better move. Can you see after this? Bishop to f6. Yes, in general, you will say that as a good move, but then this bishop will also come up here, right?
Oh,
And yeah, you can take the.
So there is a checkmate.
Queen takes h8.
So queen takes h8, and there is a checkmate, right? Queen takes h8, king h8, bishop f6,
And then rook e8 mate.
And then rook e8 makes the mate.
Yeah, so even if you put the queen in between, but the rook is coming to e8. दरवाजा बंद कर. So yeah, so this was the thing. Okay, I mean, obviously it is not that black has made the most correct moves, right? But you saw the power of the attack, right? I mean, obviously there are better moves, better defenses, everything is there. But the main thing is that not so much. I think important thing is to look at maybe 5 or 10 games to get an idea of what are the attacking ideas of white and also what are the defensive ideas of black, right? That is important so that you get some examples and that remains in your head, because having that all those variations and everything, remembering it is almost impossible. Okay, it happens only when you're, I mean, you need to have a real dedication and hard work, and you also need to have a knack for remembering those with the better ideas. But start with the simpler ideas. So get with this kind of games. So if we just recap, e4 e5 just with the ideas, right? bc4 bc5. Yeah, this is the idea to get a tempo. And now play, okay, play castle here, and if black plays knight f6, then okay, this doesn't mean that it is a completely lost, but you'll have to really think and this, right? So you get an idea of what happens after this. तुझा. So yeah, so here this was a key move. Maybe here you can.
Then after d5, could white have taken on passant?
Yeah, white could have taken on en passant. That is a possibility here. You could have taken this, right? But what happens is you take queen d6, and then even if you play rook e1, this bishop comes up, or does he?
So the bishop comes up, then pawn can fork the knight and bishop.
Yeah. All kinds of things are there. So let us see what is the. But not every. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll have to go back and see what is the rook e1, or maybe this knight can
Maybe
go back.
knight d7. Knight e7.
Yeah, knight e7 is there, right? So there are ways of, and black, if black castles and then gets into comfort zone, then it is okay, right? Then it's difficult to attack, though there are possibilities of attack still. But yeah, so this was a possibility definitely, right? But yeah, knight e7. So instead of that, white found that this was better for him, right? E takes f6, d takes c4 is forced, right? There is no way. And now now he saw that this rook e1 is giving him a very good way of thing. You could have played bishop e6 also here, right? But then this pawn goes here, rook comes up here, the knight goes to g5, right? So there is a variation there. So there is a variation like that. So but here black continued in the thing, and then bishop a3 really kind of sealed the fate, right? Bishop a3 was a very powerful move. So king to g8, and then what? And you push the, so you want to get, see already white is eyeing all of these things. Bishop e7. After this, I think it is pretty much the game is lost after this, right? So queen f takes g7, queen d2. After that, it is pretty much everything became almost forced. Not fully forced, but almost forced, right? So that was a good game. And there is another game which I don't know whether how much time I have, but very quickly I'll go through. Probably I will not have to discuss, but e4, e5, nf3, nc6, b takes before c3. At this point of time, Anand was playing black and Kasparov was white. So Anand tried the very defensive move, bishop e7. Okay, bishop e7. Let me go through quickly. And white continued d4. Black tried to exchange of this bishop. This bishop is deadly. So white tried to exchange of the bishop, but Kasparov brought back the bishop, saying that okay, now your knight is offside. So let us see how, because I will continue to attack this way. So I am not on the c4 f7 diagonal, but bishop e2, right? And then e takes d4. Queen takes d4 here, and queen takes d4. Attacking the g7 pawn, right? So attacking the g7. So and bishop e5 is bishop f6 is not possible because the pawn will further come up. Okay, pawn will come up. So knight f6 here first. Knight f6. Anyway, pawn comes up, but black attacks the queen first. Knight c6, and queen goes to h4. Okay, I'm playing this very fast because this one, but anyway, I will send a link to a commented video of this game because it's a very famous game. Okay, because Evans Gambit was like, I think for 30 years, none of the top grandmasters had played it, top as in world top 10. But then Kasparov played it against none other than Anand, and not only played it, but actually won the game. So it made a lot of news. So there are a lot of analysis of these games is available, including video analysis. So queen h4, let us see the ideas. Queen h4. What is the thing? Knight to d5. Yeah, knight to d5, attacking the queen, and queen to g3. Queen to g3. So it still looks as if, yeah, you cannot castle because the bishop will come to h6. Standard plan, right? You know, everybody knows. If black castles, then bishop to h6, threatening mate, and the only way that you will have to push the pawn and then use the exchange, right? So black is kind of forced to play g6, g6, then white castles, and black plays knight to b6. Okay, all this I'm not able to explain all of this in such a short while. I will get a commented this one, but black knows that his knight is kind of awkwardly placed without any support here. So knight b6, and white is pushing ahead with the pawn d6. This is there in the handout, by the way, and then this is there in the handout. Rook to d1, knight to d7. So this knight has moved from f6 to d5 to b6 to d7. It has lost a lot of moves here. Going to do this, and now, yeah, this is the start of powerful attack by Kasparov. So he prevents the king from castling, catches him in the middle. Okay, we will have to see back why the knight moved to d7. Why black did not castle. We'll have to go back and see, but there will be an explanation for that because it is too obvious, right? Anand would not want to simply this one. So okay, I think we are less than a minute in the class. So what I will do is I will. Do you guys want to continue this thing, or yeah? I think I will continue. So I will close the thing, or you want to go back to the arena? Okay, what I will do is I will continue this next week because the arena is already in progress. So I will continue this game and I will also bring more notes. So let us end the meeting here, okay, and continue the same session, okay, or maybe Wednesday evening I will take it, okay. All right, all right.